Hey, True Believers England team here with, we're going to have a conversation. We usually do these things. We call them Why Marvel Sucks. And in all honesty, we rip into the entire comic book industry when we do these. Of course, Eric Back Issue Breen is with me today, as always, for these. Now, has that, by the way, taken any kind of traction outside of this channel? Because let's get it there.
I'm going to be working on that later today.
All righty, cool. Now, I've seen a video by Perch, and recently, I don't watch them; they just pop up. These, well, I don't ask for them. The Watch Mojo top 10s. Have you heard of Watch Mojo?
Heard of it, but never watched any.
Well, if you watch enough comic book videos, obviously the big guys are going to come in. Watch Mojo has their own comic book thing, and it popped up, and they were talking about something that I want to talk about. I want to do our own list. Actually, when I heard it was characters that comic book companies don't seem to know what to do with, and they brought up Captain Marvel, and they mentioned how many times she was rebooted in the last 10 years. I think Perch did a video very much the same, talking about sales and all that kind of stuff, and it brought to me something that we talked about before, which was they're just fictional characters, and the whole thing that goes against that we coming up in our when we first started comic collecting was kind of a brand and or character loyalty. You know, oh well, it's a Spider-Man book, I must buy it, you know, or Batman or Teen Titans, whatever it is that got you. I know a lot of, I don't know about modern, I don't know if Jimmy Quirks, for example, is like, oh wow, it's Thor. But this was a thing for us. Did you ever get that, or is this just a me thing and I'm speaking out my ass?
No. Something I've always said is if you don't care about the characters that you're reading or watching, why bother?
Mm-hmm.
So I said that, and that's not just comics, it's movies, it's books, it's television shows. You build up a loyalty to characters. You know, that's why people get so pissed off when their favorite character dies in a TV show, or if you're watching that movie and that character that you've really started to care about in those 2 hours, you know, gets knocked off at the end. You care. If not, then you're wasting your time. And where that comes into comics, absolutely. I mean, there was, you know, decades where you show me Spider-Man or Captain America or, you know, the Hulk, I'm in. Because I had built up a fierce loyalty to the characters, especially at the big two, because they've stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And even the ones I said, I mean, I've been around so long that, you know, Nova was introduced after I started collecting. That character's 45 years old now.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that the loving thing of remembering the past? Hey, our childhood was better than yours, but our childhood was decades.
now we're saying our second childhood's right around the corner.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't just our childhood that was good. Our middle age was better than your childhood. Yeah, it goes in our young adulthood, our 30s, everything was just damn better than what you guys are going through, and that's a sad thing. But see, there's the thing, we're actually hearing from, and they're not saying it outright. Of course, they want you to believe that you want to read every Spider-Man story. They want you to feel like you need to read every Wolverine or whatever. But they're saying to us, well, they're just fictional characters. They're rebooting Captain Marvel 8 or 9 times, trying to make her this thing that she's just not. And that's okay. It's fine to be a side character. But by doing this kind of thing, it seems like they're punishing those who are brand loyalists or who are character loyalists. If all they care about are the 6 issues in front of them to make whatever trade paperback, then I think it actually hurts the reader. We were talking about with Future State, even every jumping on point is a jumping off point. A whole bunch of people I know that watch the videos, that watch the thing, even though I'm telling you, Dark Detective is a great story. Check it out. Mariko Tamaki is really wowing. Yeah, but it's only 2 issues. they're done with DC. DC killed them there with what happened before, and they have no interest in seeing what's coming.
Well, and DC's had a pattern of doing that for almost as long as I've been reading. I mean, if you know, there were people that felt that way about Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yep.
It's amazing how loyal some of the people were to just those read today, forget later today stories, but they had grown attached to the characters.
Yeah.
Even if those characters didn't grow and change. And let's be honest, pre-Crisis,
not a lot of growth and
really outside of Teen Titans and Legion
Batman.
of Superheroes. But Batman was, but there was a status quo that nothing, you know, Robin changed. Robin became Nightwing. Batman, you know, ended up taking on another ward, but you were never going to see him get serious about whether it was Selena Kyle or Silver St. Cloud or anything. Like,
but you did have those. You did have forward progression. I mean, you know, we're so at the very least, in a little way, I would put Batman in there.
But it was much greater post-Crisis.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
They did allow, because the universe kind of came together, literally in this case, into one Earth, and they took it from there. And that's, you know, so there. I lost my train of thought. I completely lost.
You were talking about how people enjoy the pre-Crisis, even though the storytelling wasn't there.
Yes, thank you. And then we got a few more crises into the early 2000s. Then we got Flashpoint. Then we got New 52. Then we got Rebirth. Then we got Dark Metal. Now we've got Future State. How many times do you expect people to start over before they finally decide they've started?
You're done.
Enough.
That's actually one of the things that you know, I'm not shy about saying that I stopped reading comics. That's why when people tell me, "Well, I'm not going to read this," blah blah blah, I'm never like, "Well, that's kind of dumb." My thought is, well, yeah, I mean, that you do you. That's my whole thought, because I did that with the New 52, because basically I was tired. They did a great Infinity Crisis, or yeah, that was it. No, what was that one?
Infinite Crisis. Earth, and then Infinite Crisis.
Infinite Crisis. Infinity is the other company.
And that was a real good one too. That one in 2005 and 6. That one was good.
Then right after they did that countdown to Final Crisis, I'm like, you just had one. Let's not do this again. And then it seemed like DC was getting into the same thing that Marvel was doing. A big ass crossover every freaking 6 months, and I was done. So by the time they said, yeah, but this time none of what you read before counts, I was like, screw you. I'm done. Get out of here. And that's the thing. They did this to the point where a guy who has read everything. I worked in the comic shops. I had my own shop. I would always buy certain issues, never fail to. But they got to a point where I was like, I'm done. You guys beat me, okay? If your goal was to beat the love of comics right out of me, you did that. Except for I went to Golden Age and started reading books about comics and all that kind of stuff. So
I can't remember who it was, but yeah, I remember. I think it was somebody in the Comics Aficionados group. Their father had read Golden Age Superman, Silver Age Superman, Bronze Age Superman, Post-Crisis Superman, Infinite Crisis Superman, Final Crisis Superman, New 52 Superman, Rebirth Superman, and then Bendis. And that was their breaking point. So, but that's kind of my point, that there's only so many times you can punch somebody in the gut before they eventually say, I'm going to walk down the next block instead.
And what ends up happening is it feels like they use the loyalty against us. Well, they are just fictional characters, so we're going to do whatever we want to. And because you've got that collection of Avengers 1 through whatever number they're up to with the legacy stuff, you're going to buy the next issue because you don't want that hole in your, I mean, what happens if you don't like what we're doing and then you love what the people after? You're going to have that hole in your collection, and you better get that.
Well, if they felt that way, they wouldn't relaunch every other month.
Yeah, that's true.
Because again, those are better jumping off points than any event ever dreamt of being. Because that's why when and still, if we ever get shows again, when you go watch the people that are actually shopping for back issues, 95% of them are looking for those first runs. Whether I had Fantastic Four 1 through 418 or Batman 1 through 714 before they started, starting over.
If we ever get shows again,
yeah, comic conventions.
Oh, comic. Okay.
Remember those when we used to go be able to look for back issues?
They're planning to have one here. They're bringing back the MegaCon. Of course, I'm sure it's going to be a wear your mask set to stay 7 feet apart. Yeah, I'm only wearing one, guys, just one, and I don't even want to do that. But yeah, they're actually talking about bringing one here. So not only is my childhood in my 30s better than yours right now, Breen, I'm saying
governor's better.
Yeah, my 50s are better than yours. So yeah, our governor is better than I think pretty much everybody in the state or in the country. I'm so glad we've got DeSantis. So anywho, it is a thing where this whole I guess what I'm saying is, and this is the question, since they don't seem to be loyal to the characters, and they more so when you do bring up the fact that they are they only think they're fictional characters, they only care about the 6 issues in front of them, they stop and start series so much, it seems like they're not loyal to you, and that's the big crime.
Oh, they haven't been loyal to guys like us for at least the last 10 years.
Yeah, you mean it's gray in the beard? We're the ones that
all right to white.
There you go.
Yeah, they've and I've banged on this since you've known me. The big two are trying to create the audience they want.
Yeah,
I don't think we're part of that.
No,
I mean they'll take our money, but they would much rather it be spent by someone who believes in what they're doing to a far greater degree than we do. And the biggest problem that the big two have, and you see this, it's sort of like the Vince McMahon theory, where there was a time where you could get away with telling people what they like because they didn't have any other options. Well, now everybody has so many other options for any kind of entertainment they want. Characters have to take off organically. And Marvel, and I'm going to pick on Marvel here for a second. Captain Marvel, over and over and over again. Each time the fans reject her, they go, well, she's not powerful enough. She hasn't put enough people in space jail. They want more of that, Farfignugan or whatever that cat is. And they're going to keep telling us she's a thing until we either acquiesce or go away. Well, unfortunately for Marvel, more people have chosen to go away. It doesn't work anymore. You've got to let people discover who they want for themselves, and they'll tell you who they want more of.
Yeah, well, and that's the whole thing. I had this conversation with Brevoort. I've had this conversation with Lim on Twitter. It wasn't like we did this bit. I'm not trying to change anything into something it wasn't. But I mentioned this. I said, no, you don't tell us who. And I think they took it as a challenge, or like because the way I said it may have been more confrontational. But I said, you don't tell us who's popular. We tell you who's popular. And I don't think they like that. But the thing is take a Ron Lim or even a Bendis or Mark Waid or bearded Fantastic Four X-Men guy from the 80s. I can't. John Byrne. Take any of them. The one thing that they absolutely have in common with us is that before even they were writers or artists or anything, they were fans of comics.
Mm-hmm.
And they themselves told Marvel, they told DC what characters were popular. It just so happened to be Spider-Man more than Captain America, but Captain America is still a character they wanted. Daredevil hung in there for all this time as a niche player. But point being is they had their moment. And they know that they were the ones that said these are popular. More and more, the companies will turn around and say, and I've had this said to me many, many times, and it would be, yeah, but you don't want to tell us what to do. You don't. You want something new. You want something fresh, and that's true to a certain extent. You want a new story told with these characters, but you want them within the confines of who that character is, instead of changing that character in order to fit the confines of that story the writer wants to tell. That seems to be very malleable in their hands. They don't care if you have to destroy, and they say all this all the time, we're going to deconstruct. If you have to change the character and get and rip them not only down to the core, but change that core in order to tell a story, you're not telling a story about that character. And that's the way it felt in some cases, especially with New 52 when I read Superman.
A great point you touched on when you mentioned John Byrne as an example. Once upon a time, if you wanted to get into the industry, you had to submit your portfolio. You had to be prepared to be rejected time and time and time again. Or if you're Todd McFarlane, times 200. And you just kept on going because you loved the industry and you wanted to break into it. Now, I have hair like Riri Williams.
I know, right? That was a thing.
Or they will reach out to people outside the industry. Oh, we want America Chavez to be, a gay Latinx now, and they'll call Gabby Rivera, who's never written anything other than that one YA novel. And remember, when you have in 2016, Gabby Rivera was writing a Marvel comic. Chuck Dixon couldn't get a phone call answered. That's showing no loyalty to customers either.
Yeah.
And so if if the people you're hiring to be the caretakers for those characters have no interest, or have just interest in whatever that one character is. Mm-hmm. And they're just gonna leave the industry as soon as they're done telling that story. It's again that just provides more great jumping off points, because I said obviously if they don't care, then you got to wonder how much the company cares. So why should we?
That's exactly the point. And now here's the thing, though. I don't mind them doing that occasionally because. Yeah, they might have said, what was her name? Eve Ewing, come on in, write Riri Williams, because you got the same kind of hair. And it just turned out that Eve Ewing wrote a decent Riri Williams for a few issues. Went completely south after a while, but at least those first 4 or 5 issues, I got to say, was actually pretty good. Definitely better than Gabby Rivera. Gabby Rivera, I don't know what was going on. That's why I think they need books like what was that new talent showcase and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be a great idea. I would love a comic book like that from both Marvel or DC, or an independent comic book that just says, hey, if you've got a story to tell, bring it to us. We'll publish it, and we'll let the readers decide if you should have a career. Yeah, bring back new talent showcase. That'd be awesome.
But then they got her to write, I think, an Empire series or an Empire offshoot series. Mm-hmm. And if she got there because she had something in common with one character, do you honestly think she'd actually read a lot of comics with those other characters? Not. So again, when you go from having people who grew up reading comics, because remember, hell, in the 70s, Jerry Conway was writing half of Marvel's comics. He was 21, 22 years old. Yeah, I think he was 22 when he killed Gwen Stacy. But he had life experiences because you grew up actually out in the world living, as opposed
not at the computer,
as opposed to where we are right now.
I know, right? Yeah. Gee, that is a strange thing to say, considering I want all those kids to be glued to this video, yet you're right. They should go outside and play.
Well, they might as well be, because it's not like those writers, are still around.
Yeah. But you're right about that. See, a writer or a company or something would have insisted, say, Eve read up on the characters that she's going to be writing. I don't know if that's happening. I just don't get the sense that that's happening, because as soon as somebody gets a new miniseries or something, it really seems like a different character these days. Now, I'm going to say that's more Marvel than DC. Right now, of course, we're going through Future State, where it all should feel a little bit familiar yet different. And one thing that I'm hoping, we haven't run into it too much yet, but I'm hoping people don't forget that these are the same characters we were reading before Future State, just in the future. So you can't all of a sudden, change their being. Now, as much as I like Mariko Tamaki and I like her story, I do believe that Bruce Wayne is written a little bit sad sackish. He's a badass. He's been knocked down before, so that should be he should be the goddamn Batman, and that's the way he should come from. Okay, I got knocked down. Now let's get out there and let's kick the ass of the people who knocked me down. And that should be something to it. The whole "I'm down, oh my God, what am I going to do" thing, that should never be in Bruce Wayne's head, because that's not who he is at this point.
Whose run could Mariko Tamaki have possibly learned some of those tropes from?
You know what? I don't know. I'm kind of thinking couldn't be like, man, maybe one of the key
royalty of some sort.
Yeah, a Tom King, maybe. Yes. Yeah. Man, what a waste of 50 issues. Actually, just the end of it. I always thought that the first part of Tom King's run was hit and miss. That's a good story. That's a bad story. That's a good, that kind of thing.
But yeah, but overall, I said he pretty much had me until the Joker went to church, and that after that was, and then I hung on until Bruce beat up the bathroom.
There you go.
And I was out.
You're out. Yep. All righty. So but we were talking about brand loyalty. We're gonna wrap this up. So this video isn't it? Because you and I, we could talk about comics and it'll lead us into whatever labyrinth of of information and such. But I don't know if there is brand loyalty anymore. But I don't think that the brands are loyal anymore. I know there are some. You know what? I do know there are some people, because I see them in forums. I see them on Reddit. I actually tried to post a couple of videos on Reddit, and they went, "Oh, it's one of these guys." Like, wait, what? Is because they're like, oh my gosh, everything Superman does is great. Oh, everything Jason Aaron does is great. Oh, everything Brian Michael Bendis does is great. Superman is great. Everything. They just don't believe there can be anything done wrong. And look, I could say everybody can be good and bad. There's good Tom King out there. There's bad Tom King. Unfortunately, it does get to a point where there's more bad than good. But I'm just not seeing. I'm not seeing that same kind of loyalty from Marvel and DC to the fans that they hope and expect to get from us.
I think at this point, if there's any loyalty left in this industry, it's almost like loyalty to a title. And I'll use as an example, Dan Slott's last few years on Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. He was writing Amazing Spider-Man. It was still selling somewhere between 60 to 80,000. Chip Zdarsky was writing a much better Spectacular Spider-Man, selling in the low 30s. You get Tom King's Batman was selling 20+ thousand more than any detective, no matter how much better detective was, because Batman, Amazing Spider-Man, those titles will carry a certain amount of brand loyalty, no matter how many times they're relaunched. It just is. And that, I guess, to a lesser extent, that applies to the Avengers and this Superman in action to as we found out with Bendis, an even smaller extent.
Yeah.
But beyond that, this industry has shrunk to the point to where characters, that everybody, at least in comics, have heard of, like Green Lantern, were maybe selling in the 30s with Grant Morrison, who once upon a time was as big a name as there was. You have Flash. lucky to, break 30 any given month. And so I said, I mean, there's not much loyalty left, I would say, on either side. And that's, if the comic book industry wanted to thrive, it should be on them to do something to change fan apathy.
And that would go if they would stop trying to get rid of us while they were trying to get this new audience, this projected audience, as we keep hearing about. Look, yes, bring them in, that's fine. But if bringing them in means unless you can make sure that they're a bigger audience than we are right now, or even more loyal audience, because we're willing to drop so much money on Marvel and DC, and they are, who are they replacing with?
Yeah, so, why did they change the industry to fit an audience they didn't have? I mean, we know why. I mean, it's more of a rhetorical question. It'd be like if baseball decided overnight that, well, now we're going to run to third base first, and we're going to play with butterfly nets instead of gloves. And the new fans are really going to love this, but all you guys have been watching baseball for 50 years, take that.
Yeah, it wasn't like it's gradual, or they maybe if we do a little bit.
Why don't why wasn't it incumbent upon the new readers to jump in and, like I said, jump in, the water's fine, instead of changing everything to fit their sensibilities? And that goes back to what I said. It's the fan base that people, because the people in charge think diametrically opposed to us, and they want to create that new audience.
Well, there you go. Well, anyway, gang, thanks for hanging out with us and such. I do appreciate you guys, especially those of you that lasted all 27 minutes. All right. Thanks for Eric for helping me out with this conversation. It's always a good time talking about the industry and such. You and I have we've been fans for a combined 90 years.
Can you edit that out?
So anyway, once again, thank you very much. Don't forget to click like and share. That'll definitely help out the channel here. If you don't mind helping out the channel financially, Ko-Fi and Patreon links in the description below. All right, there you go. Thank everybody who's already done that. And to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good night.